everybody. Welcome. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming out tonight or this evening. My name is Erin Quick. I'm the Executive Director at St. Louis Poetry Center. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I know it is a really busy time of year. I know that you guys braved the traffic and this sweltering Missouri heat that feels like summer already. We just really appreciate you being here. I know it's, again, a really busy time of year. We are thrilled to be celebrating the winners of our annual poetry contest. Many of you probably know, I don't know, there's a lot of new faces here tonight. So this event used to be held annually, and it was our annual poetry concert. Way back in the day, it included music. And over the past couple of 10 years or so, we didn't have music, but we do celebrate the winners of our poetry contest at this event. We did take a break during the pandemic, and we've been slowly, step by step, coming back into in-person events. Last year, we held the Hopkins Contest Awards in person, and this year we're also bringing back the Nash Contest Awards in person. So the high school students tonight will also get to read with the grown-ups in the room, so to speak, that are the winners of our Nash contest will also be presenting. So just to give you a little history of the contest, to encourage and promote poets and poetry, St. Louis Poetry Center has for the past 65 years sponsored poetry contests that are open to a broad range of poets. One of the contests encourages and supports active local poets. Many of them are St. Louis Poetry Center members. And another one invites high school writers to receive recognition alongside more practice writers at our annual award ceremony. Tonight's event is the culmination of these poetry contests. Prizes are awarded at the sole discretion of our judges, and each contest is judged blind. This year, the St. Louis Poetry Center was privileged to have as judges Hayam Charara for the James H. Nash Contest and Elijah Burrell for the Beverly Hopkins Memorial High School Contest. Our dedicated volunteer contest coordinators were Ted Mathis for the Nash Contest and Emily Kane for the Hopkins Contest, who you'll meet here in a little bit. She's going to be our host tonight. And then also there was support from our spring intern this year, Aileen O'Connor, who was from SLU, and she was instrumental in just helping with communications and all the back end stuff for both of the contests this year. So thank you so much to all of them for their hard work, their dedication both to the contest and St. Louis Poetry Center, and also to celebrating local poets, young and old, because that's we want to, that's what we do. Sorry. So some quick announcements before we get started. We have drinks for sale at the bar tonight, so do tip your bartender, and we also have snacks back there, so be sure after we're done with the reading you can mix and mingle with everybody and enjoy some more snacks. Bathrooms are to my right, so I guess the left of the bar back there. The snacks are along the back. Also want to give a shout out to all of our St. Louis Poetry Center members. If you're interested in learning more about us or becoming a member, you can do so on our website. We've got some QR codes sprinkled throughout the room too, so you can snap those and learn a little bit more about us and sign up on our website. Also want to give a shout out to the Hilo and the Kransberg Arts Foundation for sponsoring, for hosting us here in this wonderful event space. So thank you guys. And again, just a special shout out to our contest coordinators, Ted Mathis, who I saw just sneak in back there. Thank you so much, Ted, who coordinates our Nash contest, and Emily Kane, who coordinates our Hopkins contest. So without further ado, Emily is going to be up here hosting and emceeing tonight. Emily is a teaching artist. She's a poet herself. She coordinates our Hopkins contest, and just generally a wonderful volunteer and wonderful person. So we're really lucky to have her. She has done a great job picking up this contest for Bob Lewis, who coordinated it for, a couple of decades. So thank you so much, Emily. And I'm going to turn it over to her to get us going. Woo-hoo!
Thank you, Erin. So,
yes.
For everything. Yes. Well, welcome to the award ceremony. I'm so glad that you all could be here tonight and share in this celebration. So each year we receive hundreds of poems submitted to our annual Beverly Hopkins Memorial Contest, which is open to high school students throughout the wider St. Louis metropolitan area. In fact, all students living within 100 miles of St. Louis are eligible. And I also want to acknowledge the poet and former contest coordinator, Robert Lovis, who grew the relationships with these schools that has made this contest what it is today. For years, he conducted workshops in these schools to help create spaces for students to discover and develop their voices with the power of poetry. And as the contest coordinator this year, I had the honor of reading these hundreds of poems and selecting around 24 finalists to send to our judge, Elijah Burrell, a poet who teaches creative writing at Lincoln University in Jefferson City. Burrell is the author of 3 poetry collections, most recently in 2024, Skies of Blur, which you all should check out. And now we'll hear the winning poems and honorable mentions chosen by Burrell. So our first honorable mention tonight goes to Bree Shelley Piccinini, a student at Ladue Horton Watkins High School, for her poem, Bird Named Love.
This is my poem, Bird Named Love. A bird named Love hangs heavy, and the city is wet to the west. Chirp and kick off your muddy boots. Who's gonna clean this mess? There's a certain place I wander, where wings stretch peer to peer. I sit with my shame when I'm lonely. I know you won't find me here. I spun you into dozen threads that you never wanted to become. Endless abysses I try to face, still I long to know you again, my son. Thank you.
Thank you, Bree. And also receiving honorable mentions are Simon Edgell from St. Louis High School for his poem Wallflower, Jelani Penny Johnson from Metro Academic and Placerville High School for his poem Street Justice, and Mohini Mahajan, a student at Clayton High School, for his poem When My Parents Were Kids. Unfortunately, they cannot be here tonight, but we would like to acknowledge them, and please check out their poems on our website as well. And then for our third prize, Burrell selected a poem titled Sidewalk Poetry by Addison Farthing, a student at Gateway Science Academy. Burrell praised Addison's poem with these remarks. Sometimes we find patterns and forms like lush flowers in the least expected places. In a pantoum, the repeated lines and ideas carry the poem's pulse, and sidewalk poetry is no exception. Sometimes we find confident elegance like patterns and forms in the least expected places. Listen.
This is my poem, Sidewalk Poetry. Flowers grow in foolish settings where nobody truly cares to look, between old pavement or through netting, hidden away in little nooks, where nobody truly cares to look, or where small children like to play, hidden away in little nooks, where they spend most of their days. Or where small children like to play, the flowers bloom once more again, from where they spend most their day, where there is dirt, the small children will restore. To hope that flowers bloom once more, between old pavement or through netting, where there is dirt, the children to restore, for flowers grow in foolish settings.
Thank you, Addison. And then our second prize belongs to Bree Shelley Piccinini, again from Ladue, for the poem Taper Off. So about this poem, Burrell says, its final lines end high on the edge of a cliff overlooking a river, but the poem's speaker tries to make peace with a place that's low and heart-heavy. This poem not only maturely explores the ebbs and flows of a relationship, it is a beautiful example of how simple, important moments can take shape through precise and unexpected description.
This poem is called Taper Off. A certain end of summer bliss, a late afternoon smile, cooked and covered. I was greener-eyed than ever, and your asymmetrical smile and your low-lidded shake of the head and your oceans of thought, purple-orange nights spent wondering and wandering across moon-baked asphalt, chess games and ice cream parlors 15 minutes before closing. I couldn't win a game against your complicated openings, high heights and higher standards. I remember now, we were up on a cliff, looking over the river, when the first leaves of autumn finally fell. Our silent heat warmed your fingers, slowly, boiling around us, the sun hidden, our summer over. Just as all fires flicker out, and all summers give way to fall, I was always meant to stand alone, with my fall and without your summer.
And then I'm going to end this portion of our ceremony with a reading of the poem Etymology by Paul Thibodeau, a student at St. Louis University High School, and he won the first place prize. Unfortunately, Paul isn't able to be here tonight. He is acting at the Muni, so he's deep in rehearsal, so he's doing another art form. But Paul's parents are here, so are here in spirit, or he's here in spirit too. So I'm gonna do the honor of reading Paul's poem. So, Etymology by Paul Thibodeau. I am from bay windows, from asphalt scrapes and oven burns. I am from old rotting tree houses, swarmed with cicadas and carpenter bees. I am from her chocolate vine, her cherry blossoms that bloomed the sweetest pink under April skies. I am from 238 and 1111, from black cats and sidewalk cracks. I am from dusty spotlights and lowered curtains, from the end of the first act. I am from tear-stained pillows, 6 birthday cards, and taped up mirrors. I am from his record player and her tapestries, empty alleyways and lonely garden sheds. I'm from the back seat of my grandma's car, from ghosts peeking out of window panes. Wildflowers bloom across my bare feet. The once green hill now covered in purple and yellow hues. Here, the songs I sang as a child spill out from my open mouth. I am from these melodies, from these delicate flowers beneath me. And Burrell said about Paul's poem, this exhilarating dramatic monologue holds much depth within its lines. Each descriptive statement blooms like a wildflower, revealing the rich historical blossoming of the I and the world from which the I has sprung. So let's give another round of applause to our Now we're going to turn our attention to the other poetry contest. So each year we receive nearly 100 poems submitted to our annual James H. Nash Poetry Contest, which is open to poets living throughout the wider St. Louis metro area. And I want to give a shout out to the SLPC board member, Ted Mathis, who is here tonight. Coordinates the Nash Contest each year, connecting us with nationally recognized poet judges and helping the Poetry Center encourage and promote local poets through poetry. And additionally, I'd also like to thank our intern, Eileen O'Connor from SLU, who helped support both of the contests this year too, so thank you. As the contest coordinator, Ted had the honor of reading nearly 100 poems and selecting around 24 finalists to send to our judge, Hayan Chirara, a poet who teaches at the University of Houston. He is the author of 4 poetry collections, most recently in 2022, These Trees, Those Leaves, This Flower, That Fruit. And now we'll hear the winning poem and finalist. So our first finalist is Mark W. Cumming, who returned to writing poetry 2 years after a 50-year hiatus. Mark has a master's degree in English and taught ESL and Comp at the university level. A former RN, he completed a career as a medical product sales rep and trainer in 2010. He facilitates the Babbler Poetry Society, a collection of St. Louis poets who write poetry and read one another's work. Tonight, he will share his poem, Breakfast. Woo!
And thanks, St. Louis Poetry Center is fabulous. It was a discovery I made a couple of years ago, and my wife will attest it's sort of been saving in a lot of ways. I do have to give a shout out to Babbler Poetry Society. We workshopped this poem together, and it's here because of that, and I'm grateful to the thousands of the Babbler Poetry Society members who are in the room tonight. Thank you. I'm looking around, and you mentioned I'm 72. I think I'm probably the oldest person in the room. That's an honor. And lastly, breakfast is a memory. We've all had those jobs, I think, that are seminal, that are like opens the world to you. You may have worked in the neighborhood mowing lawns or babysitting or doing something like this, but you go out and you get a job at a psychiatric institution, and it gives you a much broader perspective. And at 18, that's kind of critical. It's kind of interesting. So poem, Breakfast came out of that. Breakfast. I am the one in uniform, white belt, brass buckle, keys on a clip that jingle hope, none here. I wheel them, their tufts of hair, their veined and scabby scalps, heads lying one shoulder to the other, wheel them through odors of urine and a musk of pine sol and bacon. Wheel them down a dim, echoey corridor, yellow lamplight casting pyramids on the walls. I wheel one after the other, flour sacks of spidery arms and knobbed knees, laboring to follow one breath with another. I wheel them into a line before the pine doors of the dining room, closed and locked until their appointed hour. I wheel them in silence, only the gummed soles of my shoes shushing against the linoleum, as I park them side by side, their backs to a blank wall. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Our second finalist is Jessica Freeman, who writes poetry, creative nonfiction, and is an English teacher and developmental skills training specialist. She is a Pushcart Prize nominee and has received an honorable mention from the Academy of American Poets. Her MFA is from Southern Illinois University Carbondale, and her MA is from Southern Illinois University Edwardsville. Tonight, she will share her poem, Quiver River.
Thank you so much. This is so nice. I'm so glad to be down here, you guys. Quiver River. In scorched daylight, my brother and cousins did backflips off the top of a bright orange pontoon boat my dad had bought used that summer. I barely knew the oak trees that shuddered above us, or the top of the muddy waters glazed in plastic swimming tubes and soda can cozies, as I did a dead man float next to black snakes, whose thick bodies swerved too close near my ankles and shins. Their long bodies like the oiled skin of a sunbather, their never-ending tube skin, those snakes without a thought or a care of me in the too deep waters that were already rising against the lush and verdant green banks of the river, during a year when we had money, a year when no creditors were calling the house, a year when the river was swelling but hadn't yet burst, and the air around us was graded in mercy and pleasure, and in the peace that we carried across stalks to waters I barely knew. And laughter rang across our tan skin, and rapture gathered us together in the beds of that widening river before she tore so many in half, before she stained the deepest parts of us, a year when no one was yet disappeared.
Thank you, Jessica. And then our Nash Contest winning prize goes to Allison Cundiff, a bee farmer and teacher. Her publications include the forthcoming novel, Hey Pickpocket, as well as 2 books of poetry, Otherings, and In Short, A Memory of the Other on a Good Day, co-authored with Stephen Schreiner. Tonight, she will share her poem, Hop In. And about this poem, Terrar says, Hop In accomplishes several feats remarkable for any poem. It immediately commands attention, and then line by line pulls us in deeper. Similarly, it builds tension all the way down the page. Its language is straightforward, almost talky, but its descriptions are rich and viscerally felt. It's a dramatic poem about a horrific act, but somehow it manages also to be a beautiful poem filled with nature. And along those lines, its most memorable accomplishment, perhaps, is the way it unifies the social and the ecological, making it ultimately a poem about one of the most basic features of any living thing, a survival.
Hey everyone. Hi. Thanks so much for coming out tonight, and thanks so much for the honor of reading here at the St. Louis Poetry Center this evening. It's a delight. So this poem, I think, came from a place of darkness, and I think we all know that's kind of the heartbeat of poetry. I think it's about surviving, most specifically girls in rural places surviving. So this is called Hop In. Hop in. That's what the bad ones always say. When they pull over, tires crunching in the gravel, a spotted hand reaching to open the passenger door in the rain. After the men from Barry took Beth Ann, she found her way home 6 days later on foot, blood dried in streaks on her calves, no more hitching again ever, and said when the car slows, that's when you run. First, get off the road. Don't you worry about the wind and the timbers or your church shoes. Don't you worry about the black brush and the dead season or the rattlers, even they're long asleep. Step where the ground is wet. Hide in plain sight, like the lauper moth and lichen. Crawl below the cabbage. You've had to crawl before. If there's blood in their noses, they'll follow. Don't you worry about going into the water. Stay cove-side, scum still in the cold twilight. Hold your breath like the snappers, just 2 flat nostrils skimming the oil-slicked surface. Don't you worry about going down by the carp, dusky on the mossy river bottom. You've been cold before. Hush now. There's no animal you haven't whispered to. Each has lain with you under the dome of constellations. The catfish spine has scarred your naked ring finger, and there is blood between you. Thank you.
Can we hear more poems? So let's give another round of applause to these poems. amazing honor to be able to be this contest coordinator and to get to read the poems from the high schoolers. I mean, if you want to know what's going on in the minds of 15s or 18-year-olds, read the poems, and they're just amazing. And so it was so great to hear you all tonight. And now I'll turn our poem back to Erin. Our ceremony. Our poem, yeah.
All right, well, I just want to give another shout out to all of the poets, the Hopkins winners and the Nash winners. Let's give them all another round of applause. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us, for trusting us with it, and for letting us help you put it out there in the world. If you, for any of the poets who are not here tonight, particularly the high school students, all of the winning poems and the honorable mentions, the finalists and the winning poem for Nash are all on our website. So do check those out. They'll be on our website forever. So do check those out. And then I guess feel free to stick around for a little bit if you want to mix and mingle, have some more food, have some more drinks. We'd love to just talk with you a little bit more. And we do have some certificates up here. So if you did not get yours when you came up here, find us afterwards and we will give those to you. So thank you again for coming out tonight. We really appreciate having you. I know again it's a busy time and we look forward to seeing you at another reading. Oh, for our programs, we do kind of take a summer break. That said, we do have some flyers on the back table for our final kind of event of the season, which will take place on June 6th. And it is the issue launch of issue number 8 for Outside Literary Magazine. And that will be here at High Low. And it features poetry, artwork, and other writing from high school students in the SLPS district at all of the different high schools. So if you're interested in getting inside the heads of the young people, again, like you were saying, kind of seeing what high school students and teenagers are thinking about, or just hearing, I mean, they're amazing. The artwork that they do is amazing, the visual art and the poetry. So we'll be showcasing them on June 6th. So feel free to come out. And then after that, we take a little summer break, and we'll be back at it with some readings and workshops starting at the end of August. So thank you again for coming out, and I look forward to talking with you after.